this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from beautiful Florida. And today our question comes to us from WyldSilverwolf. And I have to say, one of the things I'm most enjoying about doing the vlog this year is seeing so many people who are still with us after so many years of following the vlog, and I must tell you that's very gratifying. And WyldSilverwolf has a question about an earlier vlog. And in that vlog I made the statement that if you were to use the same terms that you would use to describe most other religions, it's not really possible to look at Christianity as being monotheistic, and that this is only possible because of semantic arguments, and he would like me to go into this a little further. And at the heart of this is how we define the term God. And in general, people who come from the Abrahamic religions have one definition for themselves and another definition for everyone else. And if you look at how they define and describe the word God in looking at other religions, notably pagan religions, and then look back at Christianity, and I'm not necessarily looking at other Abrahamic religions in this particular commentary, but if you look back at Christianity, it's almost impossible in most cases to see them as being monotheistic, using the terms that they use to describe other religions. It's only using a semantic argument of their own and a special definition referring to their own God that they can possibly be thought of as being monotheistic. Now, they do unquestionably have the concept in most branches of Christianity of a creator God who is above their other gods, but that's not uncommon in religions around the world. But in most religions, the lesser gods are also called gods, at least when spoken about in English. And Christianity certainly does have those lesser gods. Now, it is important to say there are many, many different branches of Christianity. Some of them are very old, some of them are very new, but they have certain things that you tend to find in most or all of them. But I will stipulate that I'm sure that somewhere out there, there is a branch of Christianity that will not fit the arguments that I'm making, because there are hundreds of them. And so I'm sure that there are some for whom these comments will not apply, and so I want to emphasize I'm referring only to those for whom they do. But most of them have other figures who would normally be described as being gods, starting first and foremost with their devil, or Satan, or whatever they happen to be calling it this week. And this figure is portrayed as the author of everything bad in the world, but that does not disqualify one from being a god. And if you look at other religions, there are sometimes some very negative figures described as gods. But the agency attributed to this deity and the number of things it rules over certainly would make it a god in any other religion. And they certainly don't look at it that way semantically. But if you look at how they treat this figure, they obviously regard it as being extraordinarily powerful and approach it in a way that certainly would be regarded as a god anywhere else. Not a good god, not a god who people are choosing to worship for the most part, but a god. And how you could describe this figure as anything but a god in any other religion, I really don't understand. Then in many branches of Christianity, but not all, you have Mother Mary, who is portrayed as a great mother goddess, even down to having the iconography of other great mother goddesses from other religions. And how this figure could not be regarded as a goddess, I really don't understand, except again, the semantic games that are played with the definitions. But looking in any other religion, she would be called a goddess. And you might say, well, she began as a mortal in the story that is attributed to her, but this is not uncommon in many pagan religions around the world. Then you often have figures such as archangels and angels who are treated as gods, who are tutelary gods of various different things. And in addition to that, you, in many branches of Christianity, have saints who are also treated as tutelary gods of different things, as deified ancestors who rule over various parts of life. And how are these not gods? In any other religion they would be. And in fact, in Santeria and some other movements, they're directly connected to gods from other religions and recognized as representing the same idea. So this is why I would say that the idea of monotheism, at least as far as Christianity goes, is basically a semantic game. It's not something that's actually practiced by them. They're quite happy to have multiple deities in most of the branches of Christianity. Now, in the older branches, they have all these different kinds of deities. And as a pagan, I would call them deities. They would look at it differently, but when they describe my religion, they would use the term deity to describe similar figures. And I don't see why it would be different in looking back at them. And the older branches of Christianity, as I say, have all these different kinds of deities. Some of the newer ones have far fewer, but they almost always have the negative ones, even if they have let go of some of the positive ones. I'm not really aware of very many of them that are actually monotheistic in the sense of focusing on only a single God figure, although they certainly like to restrict the term God to only one figure. But again, that's a semantic argument and does not apply to the conceptions. And the conceptions are basically similar to what you find throughout other religions of the world. And I think that one of the things that often misleads people is this kind of semantic game. If you accept it without thinking about it, then you never really understand the actual nuances of the situation. And the idea that a person from a polytheistic religion is a terrible person because they have multiple worship figures, but a person from a monotheistic religion, quote unquote, who also has multiple worship figures, who would be called gods in the first religion, is somehow better, is ridiculous. And that, I think, is the crux of the argument. The idea that there's some big difference in how they're looking at the divine versus how others are looking at the divine. The difference is mainly in how much of the divine they see as pejorative versus how little they tend to see as good. But they certainly see many multiple figures involved that, again, would be gods for anyone else. And I tend to not like the idea of having one set of rules for one group of religions and one set of rules for another group of religions. I think if we're going to be using these terms, we should use them across the board and in the same way. I can understand why a Christian speaking on this subject might not do that, but I am a pagan, and I use the standards of my religion when assessing other religions. And this is something that I think as a movement we really need to look at, because very often pagans will, if pressed, revert to the standards of their birth religion as their default setting. And this is not a good thing. And obviously, as we go forward and have more people who are born and raised within the movement, there should be less of that. But it's not uncommon to see pagans suddenly start talking as if they were Christians anytime something remotely Christian is brought up. And that is also part of the crux of this argument. We need to look at the world according to our own teachings and according to our definitions, and not play semantic games that others might play. So if I were to look at Greco-Roman religion or Egyptian religion or traditional Chinese religion, I would use the term God in a particular way. And I don't see why, when looking at the Christian religion, I should suddenly use that term in another way. So, is Christianity a monotheistic or a polytheistic religion? I think it depends on whether a monotheist or a polytheist is speaking. As a polytheist, albeit a soft polytheist, I look at it and I see exactly the same things going on that I see in most other religions. And I'm not really willing to have an artificial definition make that appear to be different when it is not. So that would be my thought on the matter. I hope you find it helpful. And until next time, may your blessed be.
Energy constructs. Energy is the basic substance from which the universe is made. It responds to thought and emotion, which give it shape and form. In magic, we often use thought and emotion to shape the energy into useful forms, such as the quarter towers. The resulting creation, a ball of white light, for example, is called an energy construct. Energy constructs have many uses. The magic circle, for example, by containing energy, intensifies it. Most commonly, energy constructs are used as batteries. That is, to add extra energy to our workings.